Joining us now, domestic correspondent for the New York Times Magazine, focusing on racial injustice, Nikole Hannah-Jones. In her latest essay for the New York Times Magazine entitled, "What is Owed?" she writes in part, quote, "If Black lives are to truly matter in America, this nation must move beyond slogans and symbolism. Citizens don't inherit just the glory of their nation, but its wrongs too. A truly great country does not ignore or excuse its sins. It confronts them and then works to make them right. If we are to be redeemed, if we are to live up to the magnificent ideals upon which we were founded, we must do what is just. It is time for this country to pay its debt. It's time for reparations." Okay, so let's take that a step further. And what would those reparations, which is a really big issue, especially at this time of momentum and racial effort for racial justice in this country, what do reparations look like specifically?
Thank you for having me on. Black Americans face really a singular economic crisis, both prior to the pandemic and, of course, during the pandemic. What reparations would look like would be a comprehensive program. It would be an investment of resources into the racially segregated Black communities and schools, which were constructed in part by federal, state, and local government. It would call for actual enforcement, rigorous enforcement of existing civil rights laws against discrimination in housing and education and jobs. And most importantly, it would include individual cash payments to Black Americans to make up for a gaping wealth gap. Black Americans have 10 cents, Black households have 10 cents of wealth for every dollar that white Americans have, and Black households with children have 1 cent of wealth for every dollar that white households have.
So just sort of thinking back to President Obama's view on this, which isn't completely different to what you just said, but I think some of the concerns might be that it creates some forms of reparations, create an illusion that the job is done, we can now move on, instead of focusing on the first part of what you said, schools and policies that can have long-standing impact for Black Americans.
I mean, the truth is, no matter what is done or isn't done, there's going to be the sense that we've done enough, that we've solved the problem. I mean, we know that when President Obama was elected, that became the tool. Well, how can you complain about racial injustice? There's a Black man in the White House. So that's going to happen regardless. What we know is that you can invest in infrastructure, you can invest in education, but none of these things are going to close the racial wealth gap. Wealth is about money that is accumulated over time. It tends to be passed down over generations and built over generations. And what the data shows is Black people who earn college degrees don't close the wealth gap. Black people who purchase homes don't close the wealth gap. Black people who get married don't close the wealth gap. There is nothing that Black Americans can unilaterally do that will close a wealth gap that was created by 350 years of policy.
Gene Robinson, jump in.
A couple of things. First, Nikole, congratulations on the Pulitzer. Well deserved. And I also note that anyone interested in the issue might also want to check out the piece that Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote in the Atlantic magazine several years ago called "The Case for Reparations," which in a very systematic way lays out the sort of theft, essentially, that took place over centuries, and how that accumulated like interest accumulates, debt accumulates too, and leads us to where we are now. But my question is, are our federal political institutions capable at this point of having this discussion? Or does it, like the protests that we're seeing now, does it have to begin at a more local level? Can our federal government even begin to have an intelligent discussion right now about the reparations issue?
I mean, I hope so. I hope that despite all of the dysfunction that we're seeing, that there are enough people in Congress who understand this issue, who actually care about the really devastating wealth gap. What we know right now in this pandemic, more than half of Black adults are unemployed. Black Americans were the only group of people who didn't recover from the last recession. They're the only group in America who earn less now than they did in the year 2000. So we have to take this seriously. The good news is that H.R. 40, which had been introduced for 30 years in a row, as you know, by Representative John Conyers, has more sponsors now than it's ever had. And I just talked to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee yesterday, and she says that she feels there's actually more political momentum around taking this issue seriously than she's seen.
Eugene Scott has a question. Gene?
Hey, Nicole.
Hey.
A lot of the pushback to reparations comes from this idea, this misbelief that it's this new concept that America has never participated in before, but that's actually not true. Can you share a bit about how the U.S. government has actually in the past given certain groups reparations?
Absolutely. So one, let's just put it out there. We know that we understand the concept of restitution in the law. If a hospital does something that kills my husband, I can sue that hospital and receive payment. We know that restitution for harms is a thing. Black Americans were fighting for restitution for slavery during slavery, after race riots, and the only people in America who ever received reparations for slavery were white enslavers in Washington, D.C., who were paid when their property, which were Black people, was emancipated. But we have paid reparations to some Native tribes. We have paid reparations to the Japanese. We know that Holocaust survivors, after a lengthy battle, received reparations from Germany. And even in this country, we actually pay every year millions of dollars to help support the victims of the Holocaust, even though that wasn't a crime that we committed. That's a just thing to do. But when it comes to Black Americans, we have just delayed, wait until the generations of living victims died off, and then say that there is no debt that's owed. I think one thing we should think about is at the end of slavery, Black Americans exit slavery literally with nothing. No land, no jobs, no homes, nothing. Carrie Lee Merritt, the historian, says we were the only group of people in this country who, as a race, had zero capital. That has accumulated over time and then followed by 100 years of racial segregation and apartheid that did not allow Black Americans to accumulate wealth. So we have to provide a stimulus to make up for that inequality.
All right, Nikole Hannah-Jones, thank you so much for writing the piece and for coming on to talk about it. Her new piece is in the latest issue of the New York Times Magazine. Eugene Scott, thank you as well. We'll be reading your new reporting in the Washington Post as well. And coming up, the president says Democrats are harder to work with than the leaders of Russia or North Korea. Richard Haass and Rick Stengel join the conversation on that next.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.